Hey Doc, what's the condition? I'm a man bent on a mission.
Welcome to the third episode of Brozanne, a podcast where two rude, crude dudes talk about TV from the 80s, specifically Roseanne. That kind of is the crux.
Maybe we should introduce ourselves.
Oh yeah, right. I'm Zach Zichter, and this is Jay Warren.
That's me, Jay Ward.
Cool.
So Zach, it's really hard. Sorry. When you first pitched the idea of a podcast to me, you wanted to do a different TV show. What was the TV show?
I wanted to do what was it? Lost it was it Night Court? No, it wasn't Night Court. It was Saved by the Bell.
There we go.
Oh.
And what was your? So when I initially said Roseanne, what was your reaction? Like your internal reaction?
I don't know. It was my internal reaction was, oh well, maybe not as many people are familiar with the Roseanne as Saved by the Bell, but I mean, Saved by the Bell is one of those things where it wasn't on PBS.
No, it was God, what was it on? It was a Saturday morning show.
Right. Okay, maybe that's it, because it felt really poorly produced. It was one of the things in the collective zeitgeist that everybody in the country, everyone who watches Mario Lopez now, and well, I guess no one watches Dustin Diamond, but
he's in jail right now, isn't he?
I think he is.
Yeah.
But those people started out on this show that could well have been produced on cable access. It was that low budget, I think.
Oh, and they're all like kind of generic storylines, especially now. Like
yeah.
Although I don't think we've ever seen another episode quite like Jesse getting addicted to caffeine pills.
Right. That's one of those timeless episodes, the episodes that we can relate with, especially in this 2016 when people are having problems with, opioids. It's very similar. I just quit caffeine.
You just quit caffeine?
Yeah, it was maybe a month or so ago.
Really?
Yeah.
No sugar, no caffeine, huh?
Nope. Well, I mean, some sugar, I'm sure.
Some sugar.
I mean, I don't just open up a Tupperware of sugar and just take spoonsful. But
I've never accused you of that. I never suspected that was the case.
It's not like I do that when I wake up in the middle of the night. And this seems very, very accusatory. We should probably get on task.
Okay, we're on task. So you have a couple of corrections.
I do. I mean, obviously we spitball. We just kind of let the conversation flow. But amidst the conversation in the last episode, made a couple mistakes. We guessed. We were hedging our bets. We said MTV was maybe mid 80s, 85, 86. In fact, it was August 1st, 1981, according to the interwebs.
Do you think we have a listener out there that could tell us what it was like? You know who could tell us?
What?
Wade would be able to tell us what it was like when MTV first came on the air.
Oh, I think that would be great to get someone's perspective, because I actually did a lot of, I Googled two things. I did make a conscious effort to say, what was the cable network situation like in the late 80s when Roseanne just started? Because I really was interested in to see what kind of competition was out there at the time that Roseanne started. And as much as I searched, which isn't very much, I didn't really find a lot. But I will say the one thing of note that I found at the late 80s, there were about 53 million households that had cable.
Okay.
And I mean, that's certainly not a ton, but it's certainly nothing to scoff at.
Good percentage of the population had it.
Yeah. So that was one correction. The other correction was that I asked you what day it aired, or maybe we talked about what day it aired. It aired Tuesdays for most of the time, except for the year of 94 to 95. It was on Wednesdays. So that was probably the time you were remembering. And the last thing that my wife pointed out is our electric bill when we were living in a house in Aberdeen could be as high as $200, $250 in the winter or whatever. So as far as the episode 2 of season 1, $500 really wouldn't go too far.
Yeah. What did you adjust for inflation?
Well, that's what I was saying. We were talking about inflation and how how the dollars translate, and so right now I don't think $500 would go
Oh no.
as far. Yeah,
Mm-mm.
but back then maybe it was 100 or whatever.
Okay.
So. Anywho, so let's see. This third episode of Roseanne season 1 is titled "Divorce."
That is the title.
So we'll let it start here, and we can chat about it. Watching it beforehand, I liked it. I mean, what do you remember this? Because I watched it prior to this, but obviously you have a full knowledge of
I do
Roseanne.
remember this episode. Yep.
So maybe explain your understanding of this episode.
Well, I mean, I don't know. But they go out. They have a date night.
Right.
And they go out to a date and they run into an old friend, and they see that she's with somebody who's not her husband, and it comes out that I got divorced from my husband, and one of the reasons is because that she wanted to go back to school after the kids had graduated high school or whatever. That's what you're led to believe, and her husband didn't want her to.
And why did she want? What inspired her to go back?
Roseanne actually inspired her because Roseanne, and it's a common theme throughout the series, is Roseanne wants to be a writer, which they don't really elaborate on too much, but it does come back every now and then.
And I suppose just the theme of the show itself is, when you got 3 kids and you're not necessarily doing super well financially, it's tough to do those things that you aspire to.
Well, yeah, you want to follow your dreams, and I would imagine. I mean, I'm not married, so I don't really know. I don't have kids, so I don't really know. But I imagine that most people who end up, no matter what path they go down, end up wondering, hey, what would have been if things were different? Like, what would happen if I did this instead of this?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think about that. Not a lot, but sometimes you wonder where you're at now. If just one little thing would have changed,
Oh yeah.
how different would it have been?
Yep.
What if we would have just chose that one little thing and decided to do a podcast on Saved by the Bell? What would have happened then?
Who would have known? Our life could have been so much different than it was last week.
It's true.
Or even 2 days ago when we started doing this.
Right. Now you're dating us.
I am dating us. Yeah.
So, John, I noticed in some of the 2 or 3 Googles that I did that John Goodman won some, or not won, but he was nominated for some awards.
Yep.
Emmys, maybe?
I want to say, and I'm not entirely sure, but I want to say that everyone at least got nominated except for Roseanne.
It looked like she finally got nominated after 5 or 6 years.
Yeah.
And then she did win one. And I don't know if that was Emmys or if it was Gold Globes, or I don't know what it was. And
I really think that Laurie Metcalf, the lady who plays Aunt Jackie, really, later on, there are just episodes where she just kills it. She is really funny.
I think she won one of those awards.
Yeah, there's an episode where it has it's like the end of the episode, and they see her polishing an Emmy. She's sitting there polishing an Emmy.
In the show?
Yeah. And everybody starts, there's 3 cast members that start chasing her around set, trying to steal it away from her.
So is that like Dakota's a outtake or what?
I'm not really sure what you would call it. They do kind of weird stuff later on. Not necessarily weird, but just things that you don't really see that often. They break the fourth wall a lot.
Really? I haven't done it at all in the first season.
No, it doesn't happen till later on.
Speaking of breaking the fourth wall, I just watched, we're recording this in the Christmas season. It's the beginning of December. And I just watched How the Grinch Stole Christmas.
The cartoon?
Yeah. Well, why would you watch the live action Jim Carrey version?
I've only seen it once.
Which one, the cartoon?
No, the Jim Carrey one. I've seen the cartoon countless times. But
right, and there's probably a reason.
The time I watched the live action one with Jim Carrey was with, actually, maybe 5 years ago, our friend Josh and his wife Laura invited me over around Christmas time for dinner, and we watched it.
The reason I brought it up is just because plenty of times throughout that, and I think it happened in the Jim Carrey version too, where they broke the fourth wall. It was just, and I think just wasn't as charming with Jim Carrey.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was my experience anyway. And I think it was Ron Howard who directed that.
Oh, really? Ron Howard directed that?
I watched some behind the scenes thing.
Okay.
For some reason.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think maybe my wife rented it. And I'm not sure how we ended up watching the behind the scenes, but I think Ron Howard was being interviewed.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
And he usually does really good things.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
He makes great movies.
And he was in a wonderful show called, what was he in, Happy Days?
He was in Happy Days. He was also...
In the Andy Griffith Show?
That's correct.
Opie.
Opie, yep. Mm.
Okay, let's stream of consciousness. What do you think of Don Knotts?
I don't... You know who, since we're watching the show, they always make jokes about how Jackie's like Don Knotts later on.
Really?
Yeah, her character changes quite a bit throughout this series.
Did she end up being gay?
I believe in the series finale, they reveal that she's gay.
Okay.
But the series finale is a whole other ball of wax. So.
Right. Okay. So I'm, like I said, I'm casual observer. Kind of remember a few things here and there.
And like her mom, like the lady who plays her mom comes out as gay in like season 8 or something like that.
So coming back to the episode, they're kind of getting ready for like a little a date night, as you mentioned earlier. And Dan comes home and just, do I have to?
Yeah.
Do I really have to? Can't I just take a bath or whatever? And he puts on a clip-on tie because he's lazy. And it's all about trying, I guess.
Do you have a date night? Is there a specific night where you guys go out?
No, but we try to, go to movies, or in the summer we've gone, mini golfing.
Okay.
I mean, I would love to do more things, but we live in a small community.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a Thunder Road up in Aberdeen, but you'd have to go to Sioux Falls for that, I think, right?
Probably something like that. Yeah.
I mean, what else is here? There's the nature park.
Mm-hmm.
There's McCrory Gardens. Is that how you pronounce it?
Mm-hmm.
That costs money now, though.
Yeah, you have to, like, back in the day, you just walk in.
But do you suppose, let's talk about Brookings a little bit. Do you think, how has that changed for you in the past few years?
How is what specifically?
Just in general, I think that nature park is pretty new. Or at least...
It's been here for about 5 years, at least 5 years.
Oh, okay. 5 years is new to me.
Yeah. I used to go fishing out there. I've gone out there for quite a while. McCrory Gardens, I haven't been into McCrory Gardens forever.
Yeah.
I can't remember the last time I was in there, but like especially once you're out of college, like you just kind of forget about it.
Well, they fenced it in, and
yeah, they fenced it in now, and like you said, you have to pay to get in there. I don't know how much it is, but still.
Sure. Can't have fancy things unless you pay for it. Just like Dan and Roseanne here. This was a weird restaurant. They have really checkered. It looks fancy because there's a dance floor. There's a nice waiter with a bow tie.
Well, there's some sort of nautical theme going on too. If you look in the back, you can see like those steering wheels for boats.
Yeah.
So you're not like sure, is this a seafood place? I'm not sure.
Well, I noticed the, what do you call those, tablecloths and the curtains match with like they're kind of a plaid blue and white. It feels like it's more country-ish.
Yeah. Well, and they have like a big fireplace too.
Yeah, so there's a lot of, I see those paintings. There's some ships.
Well, and if you look at the cover of their menu, there's like waves. So like.
Oh, what is it called? The
Lanford Inn.
Lanford Inn. Okay, so it's a hotel.
Yeah.
Bar and grill. I like how he ordered just a beer. He didn't. Yeah. The next logical question would be what kind of beer, tall, short. But in sitcoms, he just a beer. I know exactly what he wants.
Well, a glass of red wine. So this is where she's starting to see that her old friend is with some other guy.
Right, yeah.
And it's kind of like interesting, like you kind of get like a sense of the size of community too that they're in. Because they're running into people that they know. And they're kind of into other people's business, which I think is kind of a smaller town thing to do.
Yeah, I think so too. And I don't know if it was this episode, or the last episode, but some of the people at work, she really opens up to the people at work about what's going on in her family life. And I know maybe that is, some people do, some people don't, but it seemed like it was very freely. It wasn't hush hush, just between you and me. It was anybody within earshot was welcome to hear my problems in my marriage.
Yeah.
Is that actress from something?
I don't know. She does look familiar though, doesn't she?
She does. Yes, this is an actress who. This is the character who divorced because Roseanne inspired her to go be creative.
Do you think that's like, is that something that still translates today? Do you think that there are marriages that are like that, where like the husband's like, you can't go to school? I would imagine that if it's still like marriages like that, they're very
Well,
small part of the married population.
It's got to be weird. You mean just because they don't approve, or?
Well, I can't imagine why a husband would say no.
Mm-hmm. Unless they are a really rich person and they're used to having, maybe misogynistic in a sense. But it's pretty clear that Dan and Roseanne are not that type of relationship. They seem pretty, I don't want to say egalitarian, but just, we're equals and we do our thing. And
No, and that there are definitely like jokes that they make at the expense of the other gender, which I don't really particularly have a problem with either way. I mean, a joke is a joke.
But they seem pretty balanced.
Yeah.
And, it doesn't seem like one side gets, crapped on more than the other.
Mm-hmm.
Although I don't know if I would, going out to a restaurant like this, if I were to go something there, I wouldn't feel the need to wear a suit coat.
No blazer.
I don't know if I've ever worn a blazer.
Really? You never worn a blazer before?
I don't think so. I wore a suit for like confirmation as a kid.
Yeah.
But that was a suit. It wasn't really just a blazer.
Yeah.
How about you?
I went through a phase where I had probably right after I graduated high school, I had several blazers that I bought from Salvation Army and Goodwill
Sure.
that I wore all the time. I was really into sports jackets for a while.
So, sports jackets at the Lanford Inn. If you stay at this hotel, you have to wear a sports jacket and a tie.
I think that's just something that he was probably doing because he knew that his wife wanted him to dress up.
Right. Well, he tried to get out of it with the clip-on tie. Did you ever wear a clip-on tie as a kid?
As a kid, I did, yeah.
Yeah.
I've known how to tie a tie, though, since I was 13, so.
Just because you know how to tie a tie doesn't mean you can't save time and clip it on.
It's true, but it's really not that hard. You're not spending so much more extra time tying a tie. It's pretty easy.
I'm just talking about efficiency here.
Yeah, okay.
Jay. I don't want to feel like I'm defending those out there solely
who
use clip-on ties to save time.
I mean,
not because they don't know how to tie a tie.
Uh-huh. Do you think that some people might be maybe pushing the efficiency aspect because maybe they don't know how?
Why would that seems unlikely.
It seems unlikely?
Yeah.
You don't think somebody'd be like, it's just more efficient.
Why
waste all those minutes tying a tie?
Right.
When I could just clip it on. And
exactly.
No one can tell unless I flip my collar up a little bit.
Right. So that's why I use a little gaff tape to keep the collar down. Not that I use clip-on ties.
But if you did.
If I did, it would be for efficiency.
It would be for efficiency.
So if you ever see it, if you're fine, just know that.
I'm going to be checking up on you next time I see you wearing a tie.
So
get to the bottom of this.
DJ, I'm amazed at this first season that it sounds like he has something stuck in his mouth. He needs
what do you mean?
Well, just he's really a little kid,
Yeah.
Wah, 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 wah.
Mm-hmm. He's a cute kid.
I agree. So at that
Yeah.
age, it's amazing that he can act.
This is stuff like this too, like little things where they're trying to pop popcorn with a heating pad. There's little things like that you're just like that is totally something kids would do.
Right.
Yeah. I like that's what I kind of like about the show is the details. Like the details are just like if you grew up with siblings in a house, like you just remember what it's like or like the first time. Like I remember like one of the first times that like my brother was allowed to babysit us.
Oh sure.
And it was like New Year's Eve. My parents went out, and they ordered us pizza. And I remember we had soda in glass bottles. I remember it was like New Year's Eve, and that was like a big deal. That was like class, drinking soda out of a glass bottle.
Where this was in?
This is probably like
West River,
88, 89, Central, South Dakota.
Oh, Pierre,
South Dakota.
Right, gotcha. I didn't know that was even a thing. Glass bottles. I thought that was back in 70s when that stopped.
Well, you can still buy glass bottle soda.
I know you can now, but I think there was a time when it was just strictly aluminum and plastic.
There probably was a time, but there used to be like, remember there used to be glass bottle soda that was like twist tops. Like Pepsi for a while came in glass bottles that were like twist tops.
Right.
You know, when we were like, when you and I first started hanging out, I remember one time we were in Hy-Vee, and I bought there was glass bottle soda, and I bought one, and you like looked at me and you're like, well, what are you buying? And I'm like, it's a glass bottle of soda. And you're like, is it just like normal Coke? And I'm like, well, it's a little bit different. It's made with pure sugar,
yeah.
instead of high fructose corn syrup. And for some reason that blew your mind, and you immediately bought a bottle too. And like anybody that we ran into, like the rest of the day, you would pontificate upon like that bottle of soda.
Pontificate, maybe
You'd be
an
like,
exaggeration.
you were like, but this glass, it's just like regular soda, only use pure sugar cane, not high fructose corn syrup. You were so
I wouldn't say I was that excited.
You were pretty excited.
Okay, maybe because it seemed new.
Yeah.
I hadn't seen that. Because I think that came out right about the time that, you know, everyone was really, really upset about high fructose corn syrup.
Yeah. Not you. You were excited. You were excited to. You were over.
I love all kinds of syrup.
You were elated
I
about being freed from the shackles
of
high fructose
syrup. Yeah.
You remember this happening at all? We were in Hy-Vee.
When I was a kid, one time I put corn syrup on my pancakes. Just the corn syrup instead of actual syrup.
How was that?
Not sticky. A little more than usual. And
Not that good.
not as much flavor.
Yeah. Just probably tastes like a lot like sugar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Versus, you know, like maple or...
Mm-hmm. That's actually a little bit of flavor
Mhm.
besides sweet.
Wait, do they make an applewood smoked bacon syrup?
Oh, I bet you there is. They put bacon in everything these days.
Yeah. They don't have to put the bacon, just the flavor. That'd be a good John Goodman type thing.
Mm-hmm.
I like how in TV shows they just never actually eat.
Yeah, they just kind of shuffle food around.
Mm-hmm. But then again, with all the takes, I think you'd just be stuffed.
Yeah. Well, and, like, I imagine that, you know, just sitting there getting cold.
Mm-hmm.
Every now and then, like, if it's something specific, you'll see them eat stuff. But,
If it's definitely if it's pertinent to the story.
yeah.
So they're discussing divorce and, you know, what would happen. What would they do if they were divorced? I feel like at this time they mentioned either in the last episode or the episode before that they had been married 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, 15 years is a long time. You'd think you'd know if you wanted to get out before then.
Yeah. Well, I think it's just like we were talking about, like, not necessarily either of them want out, but they're just like, what would be different?
Right.
What would I have done if I didn't got married? You know? And it's something, like I said, it's something that they come back to. They talk about it a couple times, like, what would be different if we didn't get married, you know?
One thing I can relate to, and I think he says it in this conversation, is that, you know, arguing, she says or alludes to the fact that arguing is a sign of a good relationship because you try to work it out. And then he said, well, then we must be basically bulletproof. Our relationship is bulletproof because we argue all the time, paraphrasing. But that was something that I could relate with as a kid. There was a lot of arguing. And I don't necessarily think it was like angry arguing, but just a lot of, you know, I'm right, this is the way it should be. It is in a similar way to how it's portrayed on Roseanne.
Yeah. That was your parents?
Parents, sisters, siblings,
Yeah.
brothers.
You have, you had 9 siblings, right?
Correct.
Yeah. And one passed away a few years
Correct.
ago. Yeah. Yep.
So I was on the younger end of the spectrum. I was 8 of 10. And the older siblings are the ones that I seem to argue quite a bit. At least that was my perception as a kid.
Yeah.
But that might have been a false perception.
Yeah.
So this episode has what? Just two different sets. They really just spent time at the house and then at this.
Oh yeah, they spent especially watching it now. Like they spent a lot of time in this restaurant. Like,
Right. When I saw the credits roll at the end of this, I thought, wow, not a lot happened, but maybe some story was worked out.
Yeah.
I guess they did have their bedroom, didn't they?
Yeah. Well, and I think especially season 1 is very much just like a glimpse into the life.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's a lot of episodes like that where just like not a lot happens. You're just kind of hanging out with this family, you know.
Right. And I suppose that is with a lot of shows, and I think that's why you alluded to last episode, or the episode before, about how it really comes into its own. Season 3, season 4, season 5. And I think that is with a lot of successful episodes, because it takes sometimes a season to really nail down a character. Obviously, writers have an idea when they come in, but sometimes, you start realizing how an actor portrays that character and what works, what doesn't work. And then you can write for them and their delivery, and then things just start hitting a lot better.
I also think this is the first episode. This is episode 3. This is the first episode where they don't have like a closing credits. Like usually it's just like a series of pictures. Now they're doing like I don't know, what would you call this?
I mean, I still think this is kind of that coda, like the first episode where they were looking at the boat frame. Now they're looking at everyone sleeping after the date. And, it's just that this is what kind of kicked me in the feels a little bit, where they put their jackets over top of the kids. They're like, oh, we're not going to drag them up to bed. We're just going to put our jackets on top of them to keep them warm, and blanket over Jackie.
I used to fall asleep all the time. Like I remember, like one of the things that we'd do when I got home from school as a kid, we'd watch like a VHS. Like me and my brothers would watch a VHS.
Okay.
And I would always fall asleep on the couch. Like, and it messed up my sleep pattern, because then like you wake up after sleeping for 5 hours, and like you wake up and everybody's asleep, and like
it's disorienting.
Yeah, and like you're just like you can't go back to sleep, and you just wake up in the den. And
so I liked, right now we're looking at the last scene, and they've turned off the lamps, so all you get is the glow of the TV and them walking off to bed, and I really like the lighting there. It's just, as I mentioned in episode 2, it's not typical lighting.
Yeah.
And I like that.
I agree.
So that wraps up the episode 3 viewing. Now let's debrief and talk about that. What did we learn did we learn anything? Again, you keep alluding to the fact that it's just a glimpse into the life of people in the Midwest.
Well, maybe you can lead by example. What did you learn?
I learned that watching Roseanne can give you just a tug on your heartstrings a little bit and make you care a little bit more about family, even when you argue. The arguing will pass, and it's important to make up and
yeah. Well, and they, like that's another recurring theme of the show, is just like they do argue a lot, and there are points where they just straight up call themselves a dysfunctional family. Because and as you'll see, or people who have watched the series will see that like their nuclear family is a lot different than their extended family. Like the extended family is a lot more fucked up.
Really?
Yeah, like you don't see it until, like, once again, it's like I said, season 3 and 4 is when you start seeing how messed up their family outside is.
Like the grandparents? Or? The
grandparents, yes.
Okay.
Sometimes it's funny, sometimes it's not.
Yeah, I don't really remember too much of that. I mean, maybe a holiday episode. Is that when they would have showed up? Or
Yep. We'll meet Roseanne's parents sometime in season 1.
Okay.
And Dan, I don't think, maybe you meet Dan's dad in this first season, who's played by Ned Beatty.
Ned Beatty, what is that? Warren Beatty's dad, or
the only thing I can really think of him off the top of my head is he was in Deliverance.
Okay, I saw that movie once.
He's the one that they make squeal like a pig.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. No, that definitely, he was seared who that is in my brain again.
Yeah. I can't remember what else he's been. I mean, like, and the thing is he's a really well known actor. He's paid his dues. But I can't think of anything else that he's been in other than Roseanne and Deliverance off the top of my head.
So yeah, he's paid his dues.
Yeah.
One thing I just took away from just this episode in general, and this is the cheesy line that everyone uses, like the sweet isn't as sweet without the sour. I, as a kid, grew up thinking, we're dysfunctional. I know that word dysfunctional got thrown around a lot. But then I thought, everyone's dysfunctional to a point. And but then when I grew up, I met some friends. Some of the friends I met in college really did live in families that just they're just, I don't want to say perfect families. I'm sure they had their issues, but just nice. I think they were always with smaller families, like 1 or 2 kids.
Mm-hmm.
They're best friends with their parents, and they go to all their sporting events, and they support them in whatever academic pursuits they have, and they are well off enough to pay for their college, and just somehow it works out. And some of it could be money, some of it could be the number of kids you have that makes it easier, but I don't know. It may be some of that strife you have by being part of. I guess they only have 3 kids in Roseanne, but clearly they're a little poor. They're more poor. That strife. Hopefully that builds character.
Yeah, So there's a. Do you ever listen to This American Life?
Once in a while.
There's an episode where they're, and like one of the things I think about when I think about things like this is just like, you don't really think about what your peers' home life is like unless you're friends with them, and there's an episode of This American Life where they're talking about this boy in middle school, and he's getting bullied, and he's specifically being bullied by 3 girls that are constantly picking on him, and like he's like he's one of those people that like as a lot of 13, 14-year-old boys are just they're going through puberty and they're really emotional, and like it's really easy to get their goat, and that's why they're doing it. They just want to get them riled up. And one day, one of the teachers pulls these 3 girls aside, and they're like, "What's the deal with you 3 girls and this boy? Why are you always picking on him?" And one of the girls is like, "Well, everything we're saying is true. He never has his homework done. He does smell bad. He does dress sloppy. He is always crabby." And so this teacher kind of like, "Look, okay, you come from a home where somebody is there to take care of you in the morning. Someone is there to get you breakfast. Someone's there to make sure you have your homework done. Someone's there to clean your clothes, get you ready for the day. Did it ever stop and think that this boy doesn't have that?" And like, you don't think about things like that at that age.
Right.
And you don't it's like, I'm sure I had peers that had a family like Roseanne.
Mm-hmm.
And but like the one thing that they do have is like like they might not have much, but they do have like each other, and they're trying to do their best to help each other out.
Sure. And I suppose, is that the thesis for the whole show, or?
I would say that's a big part of it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because and back to what I was talking about, like there were kids in school that like they were like, I remember there was this kid that used to sit next to me and I want to say it was some history class.
Okay.
And he always reeked of cigarettes, and just like you tell that his clothes were never clean.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just like, I think about that a lot. I'm just like, man, think about like having parents that don't give a fuck that you're smoking in your room when you're 14 years old.
Yeah. So you can always be either different, not necessarily worse, but yeah.
Or don't even care enough to like clean your jacket so it doesn't smell like piss, like.
Right.
And I don't know. Maybe that kid had a completely normal life. Maybe he was just smoking cigarettes behind his. But I mean, like, those parents had to be in heavy denial if they didn't think their kid wasn't smoking, because like.
Yeah, it's pretty obvious.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not when you are a smoker, because you lose your sense of smell.
Oh, my parents knew that I was smoking, like, the first time I had a cigarette. Like, they completely knew. And like, I don't think that they never really said anything, but they had to have known, because they like found the cigarettes, and I didn't smoke a lot.
Sure.
But they found a pack of cigarettes in my room. I'm like, oh, they're my friends. I'm holding them for a friend. And like, especially that excuse, just like, why would
you hold them for your friend?
Yeah, so you could get in trouble instead of him.
Mm-hmm. No.
Did your parents? You used to smoke?
I have smoked in the past. It's been since maybe 08 or 07, 08 probably that I've quit.
Yeah, because you and I used to have we hung out the summer with our friends. We didn't really start hanging out just us until like 09. And I think at that point you had quit.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it was definitely one of those things that was really, really difficult to do.
Well, you didn't smoke in like high school or anything?
No. It was really only... it was a situation where you might be at a bar, or you might be, with friends, and partaking in libations, and if you have enough libations, you're like, what is that like? And let me try that death stick. You want to try a death stick? Yeah, I don't.
I want to go home and rethink about it.
Right. Yeah. So it wasn't it. Maybe after a year or so, then it was like, oh, I'll do this every day because I'm stupid.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally, like, I don't want to do this anymore. And it was good to get done. And
yeah,
it's
You
cold turkey.
Oh yeah, you don't miss it at all. Is there ever days that you crave it?
No. I think after 6 months after going cold turkey, I did crave one, and I took a drag off someone's cigarette, and it was the worst thing ever.
Really?
Yeah, it was horrid. So you almost have to get acclimated when you start smoking.
Mhm.
Right away it does not taste good.
No. It doesn't really feel good either.
No.
It feels like the bad part of being drunk.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you get like super drunk, you get get dizzy, you get the spins. That's what it kind of feels like.
Sure.
I never really smoked a lot.
Yeah.
But there were times that I would go like, if I bought a pack of cigarettes, it'd last me a month or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
They'd be stale by the time I got to the end.
Yeah. So I guess lesson for the day is don't smoke,
Mm-hmm.
and if you do, quit.
Yep.
Call a hotline. Call Josh's or sorry, not Josh's. Call Jay's home phone number,
And
which
I'll talk you through it. Don't.
It starts with a
Don't.
6. There's like a 3 in there.
Who can we call out? Scott Wells, if you're listening, talk to me and we'll talk you off the ledge of smoking.
Right. No, that's. Being a former smoker, I don't think you're not. There was a song back when I was a kid that went like, "Smoking is for jerks. Smoking gives you bad breath," and that's just really not the shaming people is the right way to go about it. I don't think.
Have you ever seen the episode of South Park where like they have like this big like anti-smoking group come to the school, and it's like they're like b-boys and they're like rapping and like trying to beatbox, and it's just like the dorkiest thing that you've ever seen. And so like the whole thing is called Butt Out. Okay. And finally like right after the ceremony, like you just see all the boys out back just smoking cigarettes fanatically because they don't want to be that nerdy. And
No, I have not seen that.
no, it's a funny episode.
I don't watch a lot of South Park. Maybe we'll have to start a second podcast.
We just talk about South Park.
Right. Or we can just talk about South Park in how it relates to Roseanne.
South Park, Roseanne, what more do you need?
Yeah. Well, I suppose we should probably wrap up for this third episode of Roseanne. But any final thoughts on this episode or just in Roseanne in general?
I'm looking forward to getting to the next episode 5 is the one. That's the first episode I remember watching on TV.
Okay.
It's called Radio Days.
Okay, well that'll be not next time, but the time after that.
Yep. So, but brace yourself.
I'm bracing.
You're braced. Okay.
I'm incredibly braced. I will stay braced until our next episode, which will come to you hopefully within the week of. Hopefully it'll be there. Like hopefully this is like a week from now. Like you're in the future and you're like, hey, I want to binge, listen to these, and it'll just be there. It'll just happen right after this.
Yep. You'll be ready.
So if that's not the case, you can wait for it.
Well, Zach, it's been a fun time.
It's been a great time, Jay. I hope to see you next week.
See you next week, bud.
Peace.